start off, Laura, with you. I think given your kind of comprehensive view of the industry, how would you describe the current state of mass timber in the South? Do you believe that we're in a boom, a build-up, or just the beginning? And I'll actually give you a mic so you can speak.
Well, good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today, for sticking with us. And it is a pleasure to be with you today. To answer your question, are we currently in a boom, a buildup, or just the beginning? I would say that the answer is two of those. I would not say boom yet, especially with the economy these days. Has been since COVID, actually. But I would actually say it's in a build-up phase. 5 years ago, we only had 2 mass timber projects in the state of Georgia, the Candida building on Georgia Tech's campus, as well as T3 West Midtown in Atlantic Station. We have several others across the state of Georgia now, multiples, several of which both of you have worked on. So I think we are on the right track. But I do believe that it is just the beginning. The number of mass timber projects across the country, and particularly here in the Southeast, are growing significantly every year. And that is regardless of the economy.
Amen. Seth, Graham, I'll ask you guys if you have anything to add to that question.
Yeah, I probably could give some of the same answers on every single question asked, but I get to look at a lot of mass timber projects across the nation. We work nationally, and our office in Greenville looks mainly at the East Coast, but we have seen a 60% growth year over year in the amount of projects we're looking at. We're on track to look at 400 projects across the nation this year, and I don't believe that's all of them. Woodworks, of course, would have better data on all of them. But it's really exciting because every day I see new mass timber projects cross my desk. Ones that I haven't been involved with at all until I have an opportunity to. But we are really seeing mass timber pop up all over the place, and especially on the East Coast. Really exciting on the public and civic side, and education, but also in very innovative things as medical buildings and such. So I would say, I would give the analogy of either a tree or a child. I really think we're in adolescence in terms of years. It takes a long time to build an industry, and I really think that we're in it about 10 years, and we're going to be rocking and rolling in 10 and 20 years from now, and really reaching maturity and such. So, I don't think everybody gets to see how many projects are out there. Of course, if you're in the industry more, the more you see, but it's really encouraging. And it's just, part of the process of moving forward and growing.
Awesome. Seth, from your perspective, what do you believe is driving demand in the region? I mean, given the amount of projects that you guys have picked up in the last few years.
Yeah, so as a firm, I think right now our total on mass timber projects is around 45. And that covers, if you look back at them, it's probably every market segment that we have been and have a mass timber project in, from single family homes, multifamily, office space, some industrial. The biggest player in that is institutions, universities. I think out of 45 or so, 35% of those are on university campuses. So right now, that's the biggest player we see at our firm. I don't know.
That's great. Any other additions from Graham or Laura?
So obviously, office has been on hold for essentially the past 5 years. We do have 2 office projects in the Atlanta area that were constructed with mass timber. 619 Ponce is one of them. Campus 244 in Dunwoody is the other one, right just south of Perimeter Mall on I-285. And so what we've seen is exceptional leasing velocity, occupancy rates for these office buildings, even post-COVID, as it were. And specifically in terms of trends, I am hearing a lot more about multifamily. As I am in Athens, I know that student housing is absolutely a consideration here. I have a family member who is a sophomore here, so I understand what a hard time she had finding housing. So multifamily, absolutely, I see progressing, at least in the short term.
Do you think it'll be better to live in a cinder block dorm room or a mass timber dorm room? So Graham, I'm going to ask you a question. You did mention you'd probably say some of the similar themes across other questions, but your company made a pretty significant investment here in the U.S. South. What do you think is different or exciting about what's going on in the U.S. South, especially given where you're at, kind of in Greenville, in the heart of it?
Yeah, I get the question a lot of why did we build an office in Greenville in a fabrication plant. And I mean, one of the best things is that we were already out in Portland, Oregon, so the heart of Douglas fir land, and this is the breadbasket of Southern pine. Greenville, I do say that Greenville's really great on attracting talent, and most of our staff has moved there. And it does come back to people. We are growing an industry. There's not people kind of just sitting around usually saying, I have all this mass timber experience and I would love to come work for your firm. And so, you know, it's about a slow growth of down to the people, to the dollars in investment in the machinery, right? In the risk that we take with investing into our business. So just so it is said today, we to know exactly, you know, what's in Greenville is we invested in an 80,000 square foot fabrication facility for beam and column elements. Because really, if you look at most mass timber buildings, meaning probably 90%, they all have beams and columns in it. And these are all have to be fabricated, just like a steel fabricator, except we're not welding. So that's what we're doing. And there was a lot of historic industries, particularly with glue lam. There were new manufacturers with CLT, but one of the missing components was the fabrication and really making, you know, billet elements project specific. And so that was one of our first investments on the West Coast, was into CNC fabrication abilities, because really it's where the mind, the modeling and the mind and the pre-planning all come into play into physical reality in setting up the project to be a success in the field on the construction site. So yeah, not a small investment, and it really is just another step of our company reaching deeper and deeper into the industry, but also to highlight how a lot of companies are continuing to invest deeper and deeper in it, and it really builds up the industry in a lot of ways. So,
well, we appreciate you being here and bringing that expertise. And there's been a lot of evolution in that space. I mean, I think we can look at the connection points in this building versus what we're doing now is pretty impressive. In some cases where you don't even see the connection point at all. So definitely appreciate what you're doing. Speaking about talent, and you're absolutely right about building an industry. given the amount of projects, and this is a question for the full group, given the amount of projects that you've seen built that have been successful versus projects that may have struggled, what do you believe are the most important aspects of a successful project? Seth, why don't we start with you on that question?
Yeah, so I'm a structural engineer, and I do not only do mass timber. As a firm, it's a small percentage of what we do. Compared to other firms, we do a lot of it, though. So successful, I'm going to come as a design side. That is a project at the end that gets built with mass timber. And those projects, early design, the owner comes in and wants a mass timber project. We are being pitched that you are designing a mass timber project. It is a mass timber project from start to finish. And that's almost guaranteed success. Where we start struggling is either we pitch mass timber. If we get a project where we think mass timber might be a good fit, we try to pitch that as a potential. Or architects we work with know we work with mass timber and they want to use it, and they say, hey, could you give a mass timber option for this? Or even sometimes the owner's like, yeah, I like it, but can we look at an option and can we price it? Usually on those projects, it's not going to be as successful. Usually at the time we're getting involved, the architect's programmed, they have interior layouts, they've probably shown the owner a 3D rendering of what they want the building to look like. It's all done with steel or concrete, maybe in mind, initial layout. And now we're trying to fit mass timber into this mold that it may not be the most efficient at. And so on those projects, we don't see success. When we're fitting this separate mold, they're looking at a price comparison. Well, mass timber costs this, steel frame costs this. We're going with steel frame. It's few and far between where that's actually going to happen. Where some success that may come out is smaller elements on those buildings where we see, an entry piece or something that was already going to be a prominent element on the structure that's already going to cost more money, pitching mass timber for that smaller piece. Hybrid approach, we've gotten really close on office space that was switching out metal deck and concrete slab with CLT when it wasn't originally going to go that way, where we pushed it to the end, and then it just finally, nope, let's go back to concrete fill metal deck. So that was, the full building footprint where we were trying to get that in place. So on the design side, if the owner wants it, it is likely going to happen, but it's very hard to get it in after the fact as a whole.
Laura?
Yeah, I agree with Seth, and we were talking with Vincent about this earlier this morning. So what I do is I do education and project assistance on wood building projects, right? And so what I see a lot of is developer driven, and it all comes down to price. Let's say that you have a set of drawings, you have a steel option and you have a mass timber option, right? If that steel option comes back even $5 cheaper, more often than not, your developer's gonna go with the steel option, right? But that's not holistic. That is not considering down the line. That is only considering one point in time. You're not considering the construction phase, the compressed construction schedule, where you're putting that building together much faster. Troy alluded to the labor savings, how you have a lot fewer laborers on site. So that's a savings as well. You're turning that building over faster. Therefore, your owner is getting tenants in more quickly, and potentially charging more in rent. Okay, and finally, right, the building code allows us in many construction types to expose this mass timber. And oftentimes we want to expose as much of the mass timber as we possibly can, right? This is all the finishes that you're not having to pay for, right? So when you price a set of drawings at one specific point in time, you are not considering the whole picture. Just something to keep in mind.
Graham?
So I think all these are amazing points. From one other viewpoint, you know, I think that it's amazing for people to keep diving into the industry. We need it. We need more designers. We need more contractors. We need more installers. We need more developers diving in and getting, there's only one way to get experience, is with your hands dirty. And so that's great. But I will say, you know, this is an innovative industry and, you know, not as well known. And so that proper partners at the proper time, going back to what Seth said of it can really get boxed in early. And so, and that can kind of go back to goals of the project, really defining the goals of the project, what is success, looking at the realistic risk of the project, particularly, especially with mass timber. There might be some things that are innovative. The cantilevers are really large, you know, on this desired project. The project is outside the building code for height. You know, it's a medical building. It's sourcing of specific timber and such, interaction with other trades. There's a lot of things that come from experience in really taking a good look at what are the risks of the projects and what's our plan to really reduce those risks throughout, you know, from the very beginning and continuing through. Construction isn't easy. You know, if it was easy, everybody, you know, would be doing it. But so really what we want in the industry is really successful projects. Everybody comes away from the table learning something, but everybody comes away also, you know, feeling like they had a really good experience on their mass timber project, and they're going to keep building with mass timber. So.
I agree. Create some more attics, mass timber attics out here. So we'll turn it over to you guys. I mean, you've got kind of a diversity of expertise here on the stage, and would love if anybody's got any questions. We'll start with you.
So I've asked 2 questions already. I'm going to ask the same thing. I'm trying to drive to, because we have claims of this is faster. Don't just take a snapshot of the bill of materials. Look at the overall delivery time. How fast can you get to filling up your building? If that's your real value proposition, and I understand you say you can't do that yet across the board, but maybe on a case-by-case basis, because we got engineers here, we got folks who are familiar with different projects. Can you say, we're going to go 10% faster because we're going to have Lincoln logs that connect real quick and 99 million you can get your profitability? Do you have either case studies or general data that we could use to help make that more holistic decision?
Matter of fact, I did. So yes, so to answer your question, very specifically, I do have that information on the Woodworks website. It is called the Business Case Studies. And let's connect after, and I'm happy to provide that information for you. That is real data on actual mass timber building projects. Okay, so that is a specific resource I can point you towards. Additionally, I will say this, you know, yes, construction speed is significantly faster with mass timber. However, if you have a contractor that is working on their first mass timber project, perhaps they're not going as fast as they could be in subsequent projects. just something to consider. I know, like Troy discussed this morning, J.E. Dunn was the contractor for 619 Ponce. They were also the contractor for Scout Living directly behind it. So they did not go as fast as perhaps they could have. And one of the sources for that delay was the tower crane. Because of the site, they could only have one tower crane in place. So I'm sure that was fun logistically.
All right. Yep. Yes, ma'am.
What about the prefabrication process? What does that time frame look like?
What? Y'all want me to take this? The one of the things we do in pre-construction is cost and schedule, right? And so schedule, especially in the pre-construction phase, is very important. I would like to say that if we know about the project, like if we're not getting awarded really late in the scenario, we are always talking with the GC of what will it take to hit the schedule. And really, it's just not thinking about it after the fact. We have always hit the schedule, and it is a little bit of working backwards to make sure that we have the proper amount of time for getting the raw material, fabricating it. What's the step before that? Approved shop drawings. What's before that? Shop drawing creation, design completion, working backwards. And so it can depend on the complexity of the job, the amount of the job, how much of the plant it's taking up and such, potentially where it's coming from. But we work backwards from when do we need to really complete the design of this, and when are we going to release billets like a steel mill order, and when are we going to have final shop drawings so we can go cut the material. So the answer's always a little bit different based on the drawing schedule, based on the complexity of the job. I would say it would be tough. It's tough to award a subcontractor. Like I'd say the general timeline is about 6 months to install, but it can be less than that depending on what stage of and level the drawings and such are at. Yeah.
I'd say too, it probably depends on, as far as penetrations, MEP coordination, like what is in the set of drawings and how it's being delivered. So whether it's design bid build, CM at risk, design build, when a fabricator, installer, who's getting involved when, can probably, projects I've been involved with, this process will be sped up or pushed ahead as far as shop drawings production is, and what level the design team can be at. So if you have an end date, we've worked very hard to get early in projects levels of drawings, which shop drawings can start being coordinated, maybe even before permit. So.
Great job of evading the question. So I just, I understand all of that, where you're coming from. We do a lot of construction management at risk, early release packages and that kind of thing. But if you were put on the spot to say, hey, just in general, how long does it take to produce shop drawings and how long to do fabrication from the time you get them approved? Typically a contractor's going to look for that kind of scheduling information, in order to at least try to have a starting point. What would you say to that?
Yeah, I would say 3 months from approved shop drawings. But I think the thing about mass timber is because it's, because it's aesthetic, right? You have to think about more. The decks are prefabricated, right? So it's really, it's the time before that can flex a bit. And that, I've been on jobs that, we've been awarded in design development. It's taken a while, depending on the innovation or what, to finalize drawings and stuff, and it's been 9 months ahead of that, right? And such. So, but I would say approved shop drawings, 3 months, we'll have it on site, ready to go. Phasing, of course, can help depending on floors and stuff. So.
drawings really don't help a lot on some projects. So, you know, using 3D models and between timber guys, you know, steel guys, designers, MEP, what formats are you guys using and being able to link all these things together?
Yeah. So we do our modeling in Revit, and it produces our shop drawings. We generally do BIM coordination in Navisworks. It is on most jobs. There are jobs that have less penetrations and could not kind of go into full 3D clash and modeling, but a lot of things, especially if you're trying to take advantage of the penetrations and such, it goes into 3D model and such. One thing that a model doesn't do well, it can help with a lot of facts, but what it doesn't do well is account for tolerances. And that really goes from experience and just really experience of building it and experience of designing it, and what have we seen can handle the tolerance between the materials. I would like to think, I don't know if this is a good thing or a bad thing, but 25% of my job is talking about tolerances between materials. Because there's always a concrete foundation. There's usually steel brace frames, concrete wall, masonry walls. There are set tolerances, and if you think they're gonna be better on your job, they aren't. And so that's one of the uniqueness about mass timber, but totally, it's something we find success in on every job if we plan properly. And it's because we have a prefabricated material and usually some other non-prefabricated material, or even if they are prefabricated, they're two different trades, right? So.
I think we had one in the back. Yes, sir.
I wanted to tag back on the schedule question. So a lot of our projects, we have the early release of the structural steel package due to the long lead of it. Are you able to do the structural in decking drawings, or do you need to be further along with the penetrations, the MEP, so that you don't get into a real mess with penetrations or changes that may happen with chases, et cetera? What is the timeline for that?
Yeah. So a plan for MEPF is very important from the beginning. What are you doing with it? Exposing it, putting it in the topping slab for electrical. Where are you running your fryer sprinklers? Are you having chases, places? What's your mechanical system? I think from the first time there's a drawing on a sheet of paper, you should start thinking about that. In terms of literally the shop drawings, we'll say the penetrations are usually, particularly in the deck, are usually the last thing that go in. But they've been working on it for 3 months. And so they are the easiest things to transpose and put in at the last minute. Yes, there's some structural checks, but usually Seth would be giving you some typical rules, because we don't want to find out at the last minute something doesn't work. So.
Yeah, I guess from our shop drawing review standpoint, if things are coming in pieces, it always makes it harder as well. So making sure all the consultants are on the design team is another piece, and who's doing your BIM modeling to the level of detail that it needs to be in shop drawings. Is the contractor providing that to the fabricator? Is the design team doing it? Is your fire protection a delegated design? But all those things need to be figured out early. And it does need to be to a higher level than an early release steel package, from my experience.
Any other questions? Yes.
Most of the mass timber buildings I've seen are of the scale we saw earlier on the City Market project. What opportunities in the market do you see in larger structures, but also smaller structures? Do you see has just been working at other scales than just this medium-sized scale that we see a lot of?
Yeah, I mean, we have just recently, I think, a house in Maine, single-family home in Maine. We've done a single-family home in South Carolina. There's a park in Anderson, South Carolina, where a pavilion-type theater stage piece is built. I mean, I'm trying to think of all the ones that you can keep going.
Yeah, yeah, thank you. Yeah, I mean, you can do single family all the way up to an 18-story tall mass timber building. So let me make sure I'm clear, so that everybody in the room is aware. There is code precedent in the state of Georgia to build up to 18 stories tall with mass timber, right now. That is what we call the tall mass timber provisions as part of IBC 2021. It is an appendix to our current building code. So I do believe we're going to see taller mass timber buildings, specifically multifamily. Troy mentioned that he doesn't see tall mass timber working all that well. I respectfully disagree. There's a real potential for taller mass timber buildings, taller multifamily buildings. One project that Sam Culpepper, the speaker that was not with us today, that he was going to talk about is a project he has worked on for quite a while. It's called Intro Atlanta. It's a mass timber, it's 17 stories of mass timber that is supposed to be constructed in Buckhead. So in terms of possibilities, I really see there's a significant possibility on the taller side.
We hope to see some more of them, for sure. So, any other questions before we wrap up? Bruno?
Are we getting to a point where we're going to see a new mass deal, or the one itself? The one South Carolina is enough for the
Yeah, so Troy mentioned Europe. I don't want to hide from that fact. I think year over year there are less projects built with European timber, and that's a good thing. There's evolution of the market, and really early, we can gain from their experience. Right now, one difference, reality between Europe and here is that European mills tend to be working 3 to 4 shifts in shipping product all around the world. And I would say on average, ours are not at 3 to 4 shifts. 3 to 4 shifts is rocking. And it does affect price, right? And so I think there's a bit of chicken and egg with growing demand and growing supply. I think right now there is plenty of supply. So therefore I probably wouldn't see for a couple years really needing a mill pressing more wood necessarily. There are some upgrades happening to facilities. Actually, Timberlab, we're building a mill out west in Oregon, and each one of these produces a lot of wood, especially if you're running 3 shifts and such. So I think really it's continuing to grow the industry so that we can get these manufacturers really pumping out wood product, and I think it's going to be good for them, and it's going to be good for the end user in terms of cost, and it's going to be good for the landowners, and that we're really growing the industry. So. Yeah, it's happening. I mean, it is totally, and some of that is because I'll stay out of the tariff side, but some of that is really we have bolstered a bit how much is going through our factories. We are a little bit in, a downturn with the economy, and really prices have dropped about 10% as a whole over the past year or so, where steel prices are going up. European prices are probably the same or going up some. So all of that kind of factors in, and it's helping it. Much less, the Europeans, they have a lot. They're very strong supply chain, not just in amount of product. And us building domestic companies that really are gaining experience, it's bolstering the strength of our supply chain. And I've seen, so not just on costs, but on that's what I think is helping driving up the use of domestic. And really, I think it'll be overall diminishing over time. So.
I want to take an opportunity, just one more, to thank everybody on this panel, and if you guys will give them a round of applause.